everything that you are actually seeing here on this meeting, even though we're all connected to the internet, everything I'll be demonstrating is available offline. In other words, once you have downloaded the initial textbook, all of these additional features, such as videos, assessments, definitions, diagrams, photos, audio clips, all of these are made available for the student completely offline without them needing any internet to be able to engage with the textbooks. The other thing to keep in mind here is while we'll be demonstrating some of these features here, there is room for any kind of additional consideration. So if there's anything in particular you would like to see, please, by all means, feel free to ask about that after I've given the demonstration. We're always looking for ways to optimize for our students. So without any further delay, I'll just jump right on in here. So what you see here at the beginning of this chapter is pretty standard for the beginning of most textbooks. Generally speaking, you'll start off with a list of keywords or key terms that relate directly to the learning objectives or the learning outcomes that are prescribed for that specific chapter's subject and theme. So at a very opening level, what we're able to do is right off the bat when students are introduced to these concepts. So here we're looking at length, breadth, we're looking at measuring, so cubit, foot. So now let's just say a student just jumping right on in, they can click on length here. What they'll see is obviously the word length. We have the Hausa translation currently, sawo. We also have the definition, the measured distance from one end to the other of the longer or longest side of the object. Now, for me, when I read this definition, I understand obviously what length is, but you can see how this can be a little bit confusing. So maybe a student actually needs a little bit more guidance as to exactly what is meant by length. They just need to click on this little icon here. And there you have the breadth versus the height versus the length. So as you can see, it automatically superimposes that knowledge into a format here in this diagram where students can easily connect and understand what is being discussed. Now, this is something that was absent previously from any textbooks, obviously. There's no real interactivity for offline textbooks. So this already allows for supplemental resources, and we're just at the base level here with translations, definitions, and diagrams. Now, just moving forward, the other benefit of being able to do this is you can go ahead and embed videos that correspond directly to what's being discussed. So for this, they're talking about instruments for measuring length. All I need to do is click on this icon here.
Classroom floor.
And if I were to continue watching that video, which just for the sake of time, I've cut it off, but that video goes over everything that is covered in this chart here. The instruments for measuring length as the old method versus the instruments for measuring length at the modern method. So right there, you provide an additional lesson directly in the textbook. Basically, this is a 6-minute video that will cover everything that is covered in this part of the chapter. So you have that additional learning resource. Now, along with it, while illustrations are always quite helpful, sometimes it's also helpful just to have a picture of exactly what the students will use in real life. So you can just click on the image here, and this shows that a picture of a ruler here. So it gives a little bit more context. The same goes for the meter ruler and tape ruler. So you can go meter ruler, click on it, it'll show an image. Now, perhaps more importantly, though, is the ability to track the progress of the student and the interactivity component. So, for instance, over here it says, look at the picture above and name 4 modern instruments used for measuring length. So it's referring to this picture here. So you have these 4 objects for modern length. Now a student can come in here, they can click, and they can type in one instrument, let's just say ruler. Let's just say ruler. Click add, and as you can see, it's populated directly into the textbook. Now, if this was a live version, which currently we're using a demonstration version, but if this was a live version, we can also set to determine what is the correct answers or the various correct answers for these questions. So the student actually gets immediate feedback after they've punched in any answers here. So if they had put in the wrong answer, we would actually be able to tell them, it would light up in red, and they can go ahead and they can try again for the correct answer. Now, while they are also filling in this information, we are actually collecting this data offline. So all of their engagement data is being stored locally in very, 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 very small file sizes onto their device. Now, All it takes then to collect all of that data, so to see how students are performing, to answer these questions, how many videos they're watching, how much time they're spending using a textbook, stuff that has never been able to be accurately measured in the past, can now be pulled by simply bringing a device into school or into a location with monitoring and evaluation agents that can pull that data in very small pockets and report that back to the administration, to the Ministry of Education, and to the parties that need that information to better understand the study habits and the progress and data of their students. Now, as I demonstrated before, you can always put a video in where you click on it here, but there are times where maybe an inline video is preferred. So you can just click right there.
Maths
Now this will
is
come up
all around
small
us.
to begin with, and I'll just mute this. But you can, of course, maximize it to be able to watch. And all of this, again, is available entirely offline. Now, just to give an example of a few other capabilities of the platform, one of the nice features that is available is also the ability for the student to take any notes. So if a student wants to take a note, oh, excuse me, actually this one, here we go. A student can go ahead, drop a Post-it note. So they click that icon, they drop their Post-it note, and they can write a reminder to themselves, ask the teacher, or if they're able to connect to internet at any point in time, which we understand is hit or miss, but they are able to write directly to their teacher as well. So they could say, teacher, I do not understand, and they can hit post. And the next time they connect to data and give permissions here, that question will actually be sent directly to their teacher. So the teacher can actually get insights into what the student has questions on from what they post directly into their textbook. Now, again, that feature does not need internet connectivity. It just needs it very periodically. But either way, being able to write the notes in the lesson is fully offline here. Now, I also just want to quickly pull us over and let me see here one moment while this loads. So along with having these fill in the blank questions, you also can do multiple choice, which gives us a little bit more understanding on what the students are selecting. Or, as I'm going to demonstrate with the English textbook, we can do things like audio recordings and audio clips. So for English language, one of the hardest components to capture in the form of a hardcover textbook is anything pertaining to oral English. So when you're talking about oral English, obviously, when you're reading, you can do your best to practice your oral English. You can look it up in dictionaries for the phonetic pronunciations. But at the end of the day, you are not able to hear those pronunciations when you're just using a textbook. However, within the platform that we've put together with Learn Africa, you're able to click on a word like stop, where the main focus here is in the consonant clusters at the beginning of the word. So in other words, that ST, that's where the focus is for this word that the students should be learning. Now here we've included the Yoruba translation just to show that we can handle multiple languages without any issues. We have the part of speech and the definition, but most importantly,
up, stop, up, stop. My car came to a stop.
so as you can see there, we're able to have an audio recording that goes over pronunciation, proper pronunciation, focuses on the component that's precisely for this chapter, which is the consonant clusters, while also providing context through use in a sentence. Now, let's just say, for instance, the kids had gone ahead and gone through this, but they were still struggling a little bit understanding what a consonant cluster is. They could also just click on the keyword here. And what we can do is, as you can see here, you have the definition for a consonant cluster. Oops, excuse me. You have the definition for a consonant cluster. And we can click an image, which has a chart that helps students look at some of the most common consonant clusters. Now, as I had mentioned in the previous book, here we have Hausa as our translation, or excuse me, we have Yoruba, but we do offer Hausa translation as well, not only in the definitions, but we're actually currently working to translate the actual video text and speech that plays in our educational videos directly to Hausa. So we have a team of about 6 translators, former educationalists and teachers that are located in Kaduna that are currently translating our video content into the local languages. So especially when you're dealing with students in the primary school levels, you're able to really engage effectively with them. Now, the final point again here, I just want to drive home is even though All of this is occurring as we speak here, kind of seemingly while we're all connected. This is all happening in a completely secure offline environment for the student. There is no concern about information, any content that's being used, being distributed without permission. All of this is entirely protected. So for instance, I know Kaduna State had been working on some educational video content yourselves during COVID-19, and you had launched your YouTube channel, but perhaps you wanted to take those videos you had created and you wanted to embed them directly into a textbook. Now, what you can do is you can guarantee that every student who has the textbook will have access to your videos. They'll have it in a structure or an environment within the textbook that makes sense. So it's all part of the supplemental learning lessons. And they can have alternate language and just various ways of learning the content. So through video, through audio, and we can assess them on it while collecting this data. So I'll stop my screen sharing here in the demonstration, but I do open up any questions you may have. Oh, I apologize. There's one more feature that I actually did not demonstrate that I would like to. So sometimes built into textbooks is just basic interactive exercises, something like a word search, for instance. I do apologize. Let me get to it. There we go. So a student can actually engage with something like a word search on our platform still. So here's your word search. They can go through and they can circle their skeletal. So they can circle this. They can actually actively engage with all of these different types of activities. And not only that, but again, if the student is able to connect, it is not a requirement to connect to the internet, but if they are able to connect, this information can be directly shared with ourselves, with their teacher, with their school, and with the ministry. So you'll be able to see how well students are performing. Okay, well, thank you so much for your time, everybody. And I will stop sharing my screen and take any questions you may have.